You're listening to the Sass Says podcast. I'm your host, Christy Rocha, also known as Sass. I identify as a woman, a wife, and a mother. That should tell you a lot already. And over the last few years, I've learned the value of talk therapy. I have seen how my inner work not only enhances my own well-being, but also my marriage, my parenting, my relationships. And in fact, you wouldn't be hearing this right now if it weren't for the work I've done. My mission is to debunk the misconceptions and stigmas around what therapy is and who it's for. Let's normalize working on our mental health and seeking help when needed. We've all heard of self-care, self-help, and self-love, but do you often wonder how to actually make it all happen? I do. You'll hear strategy-based conversations with professionals, as well as inspiring and validating stories from women who are just like you and me. Think of this podcast as the weekly therapy sessions you didn't know you needed, with a dash of sass, a lot of vulnerability, and me, relentlessly asking, but how? Hello, hello, hello. My guest today is Leeor Gal, a licensed marriage and family therapist in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You may know her from TikTok and Instagram as The Therapy Gal, where she is unapologetically her goofy self while simultaneously teaching us so much. TikTok is where I found her, specifically the Miracle Question video. Don't worry, we talk about it on the show if you're confused and you don't follow her yet. By the end of this, you will. We also discuss the couple's relationship dance, Leeor's 3-sentence method for communicating during conflict, her own struggles with anxiety, our love of the Real Housewives, medication, and humanizing therapists. This is a fun one, and as always, stay tuned after for my final thoughts. Here's Leeor. Hey Leeor, thank you so much for being here with me.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm excited to chat with you. I've been following you for a little while now, so it's so funny. I start to feel like I know people that I'm talking to because I see your face every day.
You know what? I completely agree with that. I feel like I know every single influencer on social media.
I know. Well, you're part influencer, but that's not your day job, right? I want to start with that and ask you a little bit about why you do what you do, why you became a therapist, and what keeps you in it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually went to college for communications and I specialized in public relations. I ended up working in sales for like 6 months right out of college, and I realized that this was not the life for me. I was working like crazy hours. I wasn't even really good at it. I just realized that selling was not my strong suit, but talking to people was. And so I ended up just quitting my job randomly. And we can definitely go into that a little bit more, but quit my job. I moved back home with my parents and I signed up for school again and I did all my prerequisites, finished, applied, and I ended up getting into my grad school program.
Wow. I have to say, having just graduated, to know within 6 months it's not what you want to do and act on it, it's impressive. I don't think most 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds would do that.
Yeah, no, it was definitely wild. I was fortunate enough to be able to do that financially because my parents, they let me stay there. They helped me out. Mm-hmm. But I think I'm pretty impulsive like that. Like if I make a decision on something, I'm just like, I'm going to do it and we'll see. If I fail, I fail. And if not, great.
Yeah, it's funny that you said impulsive because what I was thinking was actually very in tune. And very almost like a self-reflective, just to be able to really have that conversation with yourself. This isn't for me,
Yeah, and at the time when I was 22, I had only been to therapy once before when I was 17. And I had no idea what anxiety was, depression. I mean, it's buzzwords, but looking back at that, I was severely depressed. And I was just like, holy crap, I need to make a change in my life. And it wasn't until I had a random doctor's appointment with a gastroenterologist where he was just like, you seem unhappy. Why don't you just quit? And that day I went into the office and I quit.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
It
that's awesome. It's reminding me, I started when I went to college, I had it in my head that in order to own my own business and be an entrepreneur that I had to go to business school, not
Mhm.
realizing that that was a lot of accounting and economics and all these things that I'm going to hire an accountant to do.
Yep.
And I had a meeting. I was miserable. I was in all the accounting classes, and I had tutors up the wazoo, and I had one meeting with one, you know, I don't know who he was, like a counselor, I guess, at the school. And just said to me, he's like, how do you want to look back at these 4 years? Do you want to
Oh,
look back and be miserable, or do you want to pick something else? And I was like, I want to pick something else.
wow. So you had a similar experience just in college.
I did, but it took me, I think I transferred halfway through my sophomore year. I
Hmm.
think. Yeah, I think. I don't even remember at this point. But yeah, no, I think that's very cool. And then so what was the draw to let me go back to school and do this now?
Yeah, so actually originally I was going to go to school for occupational therapy.
Mm.
So a part of all my prerequisites, it was anatomy, biology, and all this stuff, and I was doing really surprisingly really well because I never did well in sciences when
Mm.
I was in high school. And I don't know, there just something clicked and I was like, you know what, I'm going to give this a try. And honestly, it was the best decision I've ever made.
Yeah. Well, and watching you online, I mean, you seem very aligned with your work. It seems like you enjoy it, you know?
I do.
Yeah.
I can genuinely say that I look forward to seeing my clients, but not just like, oh, I know it sounds cliche, like I enjoy going into work. It's I enjoy seeing the change in my
Mm.
clients. And I think that that's sort of what sets my work apart from, a desk job, for example, is that I get to see someone improve their life significantly, and I get to be a part of that.
Mhm. Mhm. So so that I think that's very clearly stated what you enjoy about what you do. What's challenging?
Uh, I mean, so much can be challenging in any occupation where you talk to people. I mean, in any healthcare capacity, I would say it's because some people do really, really well and some people really, really struggle.
Mm.
And it's really hard to see my clients feel stuck or not, I don't know, like get the bright side of things sometimes. It's, you want to change these things for them and you just can't. Like
Yeah.
that's not my job. I don't have magical powers. And so sometimes it's really, really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've talked to enough therapists now to know that you truly get involved in a deep way, and you really want good things for your clients. You know, you're very much a part of their life.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, hey, what's up? Like, what's going on? Good morning or like good afternoon, night.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's how I am with my clients because I feel like quote unquote traditional therapy of like you see this like man sitting on the couch with a notebook and like the client laying on the couch. Like that's not my vibe. My vibe is to be a human with my clients, get to know them, let them know that I'm also a human being as well and that I'm with them in this process.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm reminded of I was scrolling, like I said, through your TikTok earlier, and you had that one where you said what everyone thinks being a therapist is, and it was the Missy Elliott of you just like lifting your glasses up and down and taking notes and this and that, and it's very yeah. There's this stuffy, I think, impression of this field. It's either stuffy and uptight and pretentious, or it's like way like crunchy granola, and I just love what you're doing because it can be cool, it can be fun, it can be like
Ah.
hip and down to earth and all these words that are making me sound very old right now.
No, it's okay. I always feel old.
Like I don't know, like what are they like? There's all these words now that
The
the
vibe.
kids the
It's
vibe,
the
yeah, like the
vibe.
vibe. I don't know. I gotta watch more TikToks clearly. So how did that start? How did you think to get on there? What was the inspiration?
Yeah, so honestly, I was, and I'll never share this, but I had started doing TikToks under an alias name. Like,
Mm.
not therapy related. Like, I just had, like, in high school and middle school and like elementary school, when you and all your girlfriends did videos to like music videos and things like that.
Yes.
Yeah, that was like my favorite thing to do, and I ended up being the one to always record it and edit it, and I'd make it like so cool. It was my thing. I always loved doing it. So when TikTok came out, actually before TikTok was TikTok, I think it was called Musical.ly, and I was
Hmm.
on Musical.ly before it was even TikTok,
Wow.
and I was like, oh, this is great. And then I was like, crap, what if my clients find me making these just like ridiculous videos? It wasn't like dancing with my belly out. It was like like funny, like just like
Goofy.
yeah,
Yeah.
goofy things. And one of my friends was like, why don't you just do a therapy TikTok? And I
Hmm.
was like, oh my gosh, you think like therapists are allowed to be on TikTok? And she was like, yeah, why not? Like I saw one. And I was like, okay. So I made one video, and that first video got like 200,000 views and like
Wow.
a crap ton of likes. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I can actually have a voice on this, and I
Mm.
can make a change. And
Mm.
I continued.
Yeah. I like that. I can have a voice on this. Is that how you feel about it? It's more than just fun and games.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it definitely is a creative outlet for me, and it is actually really fun for me to do them. But at the same time, I get to normalize and destigmatize mental health.
Hmm. And you asked, can therapists be on TikTok? Like,
Mm.
what do you think about that? Like, on one hand, I always joke that my therapist is my best friend and this and that, but I see nothing of her life. I know very little of her life. I know a couple of things, but it's always funny to see therapists on social media and go, that's someone's therapist. That would be cool for me to see mine on there, but I know she won't. But it's like, what do you think about that? Where is the line for you? What do you keep sacred? What do you keep, close to the chest? How do you decide what gets put out there?
Yeah, so, I kind of have to compartmentalize in a way where in the therapy room, I do not self-disclose unless I feel it is extremely appropriate and
Mm,
important for my client. I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, yeah, like my day was like this. That's highly inappropriate. But through my TikToks or social media, Instagram stories, extra, et cetera, I think it's important that clients, people, anybody knows that we are also human beings,
mm-hmm.
and we are also entitled to have a life, to have crappy days, to have happy days, like to just live our life as well. And if I can share part of that and show that, hey, I'm not perfect and I don't expect you to be either,
Mm-hmm.
that's sort of what is keeping me I guess like above this line of like I cannot share anything about me and nobody can know that I have a partner and a dog and you know what I mean? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, this is my life, and
Right.
if you don't want to know about it, don't follow me.
Right, right. Don't follow me, or maybe I'm not the therapist for you, right?
Exactly.
I mean, so have any of your clients found you, and has that been a conversation?
Oh yes. Oh yes. I had one video that I don't even know why, but it blew up. It got like 2.8 million views or something.
Oh my goodness.
And almost every single client of mine was like, I saw you on TikTok. I was like, okay, so how did you feel about that?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
I'll go into that. And some are like, yeah, like it's fine. I'm not gonna follow you. And I'm like, yeah, totally boundaries. Like if you don't want to, don't. And some are like, oh my gosh, I want to follow you. And I'm like, okay, great.
great.
Like follow me. Like
Yeah,
it doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter. It's whatever makes my client feel comfortable.
yeah. So that's funny though that most of your clients are on TikTok. Are your clients generally millennial, Gen Z, Gen X? Who are we talking about here?
Yeah, so I guess my age range for my clients right now is anywhere from 15 to 34, 35.
Okay.
And that's sort of my sweet spot anyways.
Mm-hmm. And who's typically coming to you? What are they struggling with? What are
Mhm.
they looking to get out of the experience?
Yeah, so typically anyone with relationship issues, it could be any type of relationship, romantic, friendships, familiar relationships, transitions, anxiety, depression, um, feeling stuck, things like that. That's typically who I see.
Hmm. I read somewhere, I think it was on one of the practices that you are part of, where part of your bio was talking about the couples intimacy dance.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Sure, sure. So there is typically in a relationship, there's a distancer and there's the pursuer.
Hmm.
So the distancer is a little bit more of the avoidant one, more like this is my life, this is I love you, but I'm going to keep you at arm's length. And then there's the pursuer that sort of chases that, is a little bit more anxiously attached and wants a little bit more attention from the distancer.
Hmm.
And so we call it a dance is because sometimes the roles switch.
Yeah.
And there's various reasons for those roles to switch, but when they do, each partner is always like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Like, typically the pursuer that turns into the distancer is, in a higher position because they're like, ha, now you're chasing me.
Mm-hmm.
And the distancer that's now the pursuer is like, oh, wow, I don't like this feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's an interesting way to really understand and empathize with your partner that we need to kind of find a middle ground, a happy medium.
Yeah. Is that something that you will come out and say, we're going to talk about this intimacy dance, or like, how does that work?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's so important. I mean, obviously, gently, lovingly.
Right.
I
Right.
things,
Not like,
but
listen up. You're
yeah.
the pursuer, you're the distancer, and get in line.
Exactly. I typically, I sort of do psychoeducation around that, and I say, what do you guys think about this? Do you relate to this?
Y'all are always doing that. You're always making us answer the questions.
It's important because it's sort of like, whenever, and my partner hates when I do this, but I do this because I have to do it with my parents. So I do it on him, where if I'm teaching someone how to do something, I don't do it for them. I tell them what to do step by step, and I have them do it. Mm-hmm. Because unless you do it yourself, you're not going to remember how to do it. That's
I know.
It's amazing, though.
Do you typically find that, speaking very heteronormatively, typical, maybe not typical is the right word, but stereotypical gender roles, one tends to fall to the other? Like, one is usually this and one is usually that?
Yeah, so, it's interesting that you asked this question because I'm assuming that you have a thought as to who falls into what position. But yeah, typically the woman is the pursuer, is the more anxiously attached, and the man is typically the distancer or more avoidant.
Yeah, it's funny because obviously as you're talking, I'm thinking of myself and my relationship. And, it was, as soon as you said the roles can reverse, because I really, for a minute, was having a hard time. And I think a lot of why that is that in this time period now where I'm have more on my plate and I have more going on for myself that I haven't in so long because I was just pregnant and having babies. Now that I'm doing this, which is great. I don't mean to like downplay that, it's everything. But
yeah,
now that I have this, I can kind of see, it's like right now, I'm having interaction with you. Whereas typically, especially during COVID and quarantine, every time my husband would come home, I was like, hi, how you doing? What do you want to talk about? You're an adult. You look nice. Let's hang out. And now it's like, no, I'm having that with you now. So It's not that I don't want to have it with my husband. I just have different things going on. And so I think it has definitely changed our dynamic a bit. I wouldn't swear to black and white roles, and I think that that's probably part of it too, right? You can sort of embody a little bit of each one depending on what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why it's a dance, because it switches.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so the other thing that kind of seems to always come up whenever I'm talking about couples and this and that is that communication word. That seems to be the biggest make or break thing, because you can have all the issues, right? Or you can not have issues, but if you're not talking about anything, what do you see as some of the common patterns or mistakes that couples are falling into, whether it relates to communication or not? I mean, I brought that up because it seems to be a thing generally, but what are some of the mistakes couples are making or patterns that they're falling into that you see a lot?
So, the first thing that comes to mind is and I know it sounds so silly, but the amount of time that you plead your case. So when I say the amount of time, I mean the longevity of your sentence, how long it spans, because I don't want to say something that's completely incorrect, but I believe that studies show that human beings can only listen to about 20 seconds of speech before trying to come up with their own response. So if I'm coming at you with like a monologue of what you did to hurt me, after 20 seconds, you're checked out. And all you're doing is thinking about what you're going to say back. Yeah. So you're not actually listening to me. You're hearing me, but you're not really listening to the words that are coming out of my mouth. Yeah. So whether in the therapy room or if I give homework outside of it, I typically say, narrow it down to 3 sentences each.
Yeah. No, that's smart. That makes sense. You're good at this.
Yeah. I need a lot of money to be this smart.
And not that you need me to tell you, but yeah.
I love it.
No, it makes sense, because and I would never have been able to verbalize that, but I can absolutely with 100% certainty say that before therapy, I was like on my pedestal, like just doing the monologue of this, that, the other. And now it's just it's very simple. It's very, this is what's bothering me. Like, or I see you're upset. The whole thing. But, I feel like sometimes when I say things like that, it can come across as almost like manipulative in some way. But it's just about, for me, I'm envisioning just like cutting through the crap. Yeah. And just getting to the point,
No, absolutely. I'm really curious about that word manipulative, though.
Yeah, I think because sometimes because I have the perspective of being in therapy and having these conversations and talking about the whole thing with the brain and the relationships and all of that. And my husband's not in therapy with me. So sometimes I feel like, and this is me, I know this is on me, he's never said this before and I should probably bring it up, but I sometimes feel like when I'm having these conversations and I say something about what I've learned and how to differ my response or my approach, I wonder if it is heard as I'm just doing things differently to ultimately get to the end result that benefits me. Does that make sense?
Okay. That makes sense. And what I want to say to that is, and hopefully this is helpful for anyone listening, is that another really great technique that you could do with your partner is, and it's called the speaker-listener technique, is you say your 3 sentences, right? And your partner then responds with what they heard. So sometimes that can be like, I really like walks in the park. But what you're hearing is, I'd rather walk in the park than hang out with you. Right? So I'd be really curious as to, is what I'm saying being portrayed in a way that I want it to, or is it being interpreted completely different? And if so, how can I adjust, the way that I'm expressing this, or, how can they adjust things to make it more amicable?
Yeah, I love that, because 9 times out of 10, it's just in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
Right. So maybe, finding ways to get that reassurance or, what did you think I meant here? And then, you can get your answer.
Yeah. So do you do these techniques with your partner? Does he know you're doing them?
He does not let me do any therapy on him. He's like, enough.
Yeah, yeah.
But, like I said before, I'm a human being too. I freak out. I'll yell at him. I'll, use statements, which I can explain that as well, where it happens, and
Yeah.
something that I always tell my couples, my clients, my, individual clients, couples fight.
Yeah.
You're going to fight. You're going to have big blow up fights. It's the resolution that's going to be really important here, and how to sort of stop that cycle.
So you've also been pretty, well, I don't know about pretty, but you've been open about your humanity online and sharing a little bit about your own anxiety and challenges with mental health. Like, elaborate on that a little bit, if you don't mind, about your own experience and how things sort of manifest for you.
Yeah. So I see myself as just like a ball of anxiety.
Oh.
But
I have quite a visual.
just like a little fuzzy ball walking. I think it's like pink, fuzzy, really cute.
It's a
but
cute ball.
It's a cute fuzzy ball of anxiety. And the problem with me, and I think the problem with a lot of, problem in quotes, with a lot of people is that by being around me, by looking at me, by, being my friend, etc., you wouldn't know that I was anxious. And that is a huge issue, because the way that my anxiety comes up is physically. So instead of being like, having a panic attack, or I'm this or I'm that, I have a stomach ache, or I have a headache, or my jaw hurts, or, it comes up physically for me where, after a week, if I'm like clenching my jaw while I'm sleeping, I'm like, holy crap, like, what am I anxious about?
Yeah.
I really have to check in with myself and say, this is a sign for me. So I either need to chill the heck out or like meditate.
Yeah. Well, that was part of your, I'm looking for it and I can't seem to find it, but that was part of your focus in school, wasn't it?
Yeah, it actually was. So I went to Thomas Jefferson University in Philadelphia, and we got to choose from two different tracks. So one of it was family and medical therapy, and the other was sex therapy. And I decided to go through the family and medical route. Because, personally, I wanted to understand what was going on for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's pretty powerful how the body responds. There's that book, right? The Body Keeps Score.
Yeah.
I have it sitting here. I haven't read it yet, but everyone raves about it. But I experience a bit of the same, even sort of, so I don't know if it's, I don't know. I go back and forth whether I know I'm doing it or I don't. It's like but I do this thing where I like sort of like bite the inside of my mouth and I go back and forth.
Yeah.
Like, I've been doing it almost the entire time we've been talking, and I didn't notice it until you started talking about your stomach aches. And then I was like, oh, what you doing there? And I don't feel anxious, really, but something's going on,
Exactly. Yeah. It's always really good to sort of take a step back and say, where do I feel this in my body? And like, what is going on in my body that my head is not telling me?
Yeah. So when you're feeling anxious, what do you do to get yourself through it?
Yeah, so I recently read a Vogue article that actually the psychiatrist that I work with had sent it to us, and there was this really cool breathing exercise where you breathe in for 4, you hold for 7, and you blow out for 8 seconds. And do that 4 times, and it's supposed to really relax the nervous system. So I try to do that before I go to sleep, going for my jaw, in between clients. I really like to go on walks. I wish I liked to exercise. I really wish I did. I don't. But I know it's good for me, and that's always helpful. But I like to just move my body or talk to a friend, and I start to feel good after.
Yeah. Do you ever feel, I always wonder, sitting on that side of the couch, so to speak, of that side of the desk, are you ever triggered by something your client's going through? Like, how do you protect yourself and how do you work through that?
Oh my gosh, yes, yes, of course. I feel like I'm a broken record here, but I'm a human being. Like,
Yeah.
I have cried in session. I, not bawled my eyes out, but I have
Right.
teared up. I have, because I care so much about my clients. So when I hear something that is so difficult for them, or they're sharing something that is, you know, the most difficult thing to even speak out loud, it affects me because I feel for them, right? I empathize with them. And so sometimes I don't take care of myself afterwards and I kind of just lay on the floor, or I find myself crying, or I go on a walk, or I hug my dog. And sometimes I'm like, I cannot change this. I cannot fix everything, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And kind of understanding that I didn't cause this pain, even though it feels like I need to freaking do everything in my power to fix it. But yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah. And, you've mentioned walking, breathing, playing with your dog. I bring up self-care a lot on the show because I feel like the idea of self-care has gotten really muddy through social media. We have all of these well-intentioned as they are influencers and whoever telling us self-care, self-care, self-care. But, I've shared with you, I have 2 small kids. I have this show. I've got a husband. I've got a house. Like, I'm always asking how are we supposed to get it done? And so I like to ask my guests, what you do, how you make it happen, how you fit it in, because we need help.
Yeah. Self-care is such a hot topic. And hearing you say or list off the things that you have going on in your life, the thing that comes, not comes, but the thing that really attracts me to that is, instead of adding self-care to your routine, I would be thinking more of, what can we eliminate from your routine? Right?
Yeah.
So if for example, I'm working with a kid, let's say they're 16 years old, and they're on the soccer team, and they're studying for their SATs, and they're doing this and they're doing that, and da, 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 da. It's not what more can they do to feel better, but what can we eliminate so that they have more time to just do nothing or be a kid?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it makes sense because, I don't have any more time to give. And when I have time, I don't want to be sitting there getting like, oh, where's my little notebook of my self-care chores? That's not fun. That's not cool. And it doesn't feel very relaxing.
Because it's not authentic. It's not genuinely what your heart wants to do in that moment. And if you're finding yourself really just exhausted throughout the day, why would you want to listen to a meditation? Why would you probably just don't want to think. You probably just want to sit on your phone and scroll through social media.
Yeah, I do that sometimes, but really my I don't even think it's a guilty pleasure anymore. I'm loud and proud about it, but it's usually an episode of some Housewives.
Oh, don't even get me started. I watch all of them. Bravo is my favorite. The Bachelor Nation. Yes. I do it all.
I had to give up on Bachelor Nation. I was in it to win it for so long. But those 3-hour episodes of hearing someone say journey 400 times, I just had to move on at some point. And it's funny, I did that one other time and then I got back into it and I actually had to have the conversation with myself. I'm like, you just need to eliminate this for the time being. You have enough shows.
There is self-care. Yeah. So you incorporated self-care.
Well, I think part of it too was when we were quarantined, my husband won't watch it. Yeah. So it was like, we're sitting down watching TV every night together because what else were we going to do? And I wasn't even going to pretend to say, should we watch Bachelor in Paradise? No.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
And then I actually refused to watch Housewives with him in the room because he just asks questions the whole time. And he pretends he doesn't know or care, but then he lingers, and he's like, who's that? She's new,
It's really addicting.
It is. You know what? And it makes me happy to see people argue on TV that aren't me. I don't know. And the clothes. I watch for the clothes too.
Oh, yes, I agree. I love drama.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. All right. So I really, like I said, I love everything you're doing about normalizing this whole field and making it really the vibes, down to earth and whatnot. Talk to someone who's listening who's never been to therapy. What should they be looking for? What's important for them to know?
Yeah. So, to start off with, what do they want to come to therapy for? So every therapist has their own specialty. You wouldn't want to go to someone that specializes in OCD if you're coming in for, I don't know, I have no idea, but
anything else.
I'm blanking.
Depression.
But, yeah.
Postpartum depression.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah.
But you catch my drift. Like
I do. I got your vibes.
You get my vibe. Yeah, you want to go to someone that specializes in what you want to work on. You also want to interview therapists. So it's okay to not go with the first one you talk to. If you want to talk to 7, talk to 7 and see what their style is like, how they typically hold a session, who their clientele is. Do they work with someone like me? Do you take insurance? Are you self-pay? Are you, out of pocket? Things like that. It's all really, really important to interview your therapist before you get started with them, because this is someone that you're supposed to fully, quote unquote, fully trust or be able to trust eventually.
Yeah. No, it makes or breaks it, right? I mean, if you don't feel like the kumbaya between you and your therapist, what are we doing here?
Exactly. And sometimes it takes time to really warm up to someone. Countless times I've had clients that I'm like, oh man, like they feel uncomfortable or they don't want to open up, and by like the 5th, 6th session, I'm like, wow, this person was here the whole time. This is wonderful. Yeah. And I really, that's like my favorite when that happens.
Are you still doing sessions virtually, or are you back in person?
Yeah, so I'm mostly virtual. I only go into the office for like about 4 hours. I really like virtual.
Yeah.
It allows me, to treat more people. It allows me to feel comfortable in my own home, not worry about commuting and the city and the, this and that. And I love it personally.
Yeah. It's funny because I wonder what your take on this is, but I can't remember why it came up in one of my sessions. I think I was probably, again, joking about how we're best friends or something like that. And she's like, well, it's different now that we've been doing this virtually for the last however long, because she's like, I've been in your home essentially, and I've seen your kids, and I feel like I've become a part of your routine in a way that's much different when you show up alone to the office and we close the door.
Yeah.
That's almost me stepping into her world there. Whereas when we're on FaceTime, it's like she's following me around. If my kids are screaming, they need to say hello and goodbye every time we're on the phone, So she's like, it's different. It's different having that experience.
Yeah. So you enjoy virtual as well?
I do. I think the pros outweigh the cons. The only con I would say is that, there was a part of me that, as annoying as it was to get childcare and get myself there, it was a break. Yeah. It was an hour plus of the kids are somewhere else and I'm walking into someone else's zone, and I can give her and myself my full attention. Whereas now, my kids are around. They're usually in front of the TV, but half the time I'm cutting strawberries while I'm telling my deepest, darkest secrets, so it can be a little tricky in that way. Sometimes I lose my train of thought, whereas I wouldn't have before, but being able to just literally pick up the phone is is very nice, especially given, you know, all the different schedules with the kids and me and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Leeor, do you have a therapist?
I currently do not, but that is on my to-do list.
Yeah.
But I did.
Yeah.
We terminated right before, I think it was during quarantine. I was like, okay, I'm
Like, you're good. Like, you're okay for now.
I'm ready to pause. And, you know, I ended up changing insurances and things like that. And I moved to Philly. I was in New Jersey. So, you know, I can't see, side note, you can't see a therapist unless they're licensed in your state.
Right.
And so I'm on a journey now to find someone new.
Okay. I always wonder about that because I'm not, well, I wonder if therapists have therapists, but I also wonder about when it comes time to pause. You know, I don't feel like I'm ready for that, but I wonder what it will feel like when I am. You know, I'm assuming it will be this like very clear thing of, yeah, I think I'm good, but you know, what is, when you're with clients when it's time to pause, are you very like getting to that point of we're probably good and you wait for them to say it? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So I typically, you know, see my clients tapering off. So instead of, let's say, meeting weekly, we meet every other week. Then we meet every 3 weeks. Then we meet once a month for check-ins. And then after that, some people really like the check-ins once a month, which is okay. If you are, you know, using the tools that we talk about, if you're feeling better about things, if you're not in crisis, that's completely okay with me. And then if they're like, you know what, Leeor, I think I'm feeling good. I don't even really need these check-ins. Amazing. Like, great. And I'm here. You know, if you want to come back, I'm always here. Yeah. So I typically, you know, it's like a gradual transition. It's not like every single week to then like nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And the other thing that this is on my mind, and I wonder if you have any thoughts on it. You know, I'm on medication. I'm on sertraline, and I also don't think I'm ready to come off of it. But I do wonder a little bit about, like, how will I know when I'm ready to come off? I don't know. I don't know.
So, you know, you might and you might not, right? So that's definitely something to talk to your doctor about and your therapist, because first of all, you never just stop cold turkey. I'm sure you know that. It's also a gradual, you know, stopping of the medication. But some people feel that when they have the tools to get through whatever it is that they, you know, feel that they really need to get through, they say, you know, I'm ready to give this a pause, or I'm ready, you know, to try something new. And the thing that's really important to remember, just because you stop medication and you start feeling bad doesn't mean that you cannot go back on medication. Yeah. It is still there as a part of your toolbox.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious about it, mostly because, and I'm working through this too, Leeor, but I wonder if I'm having trouble with weight loss because of it. And I'm mentally grappling with that. I'm working through the whole food and diet culture thing. I've like been interviewing intuitive eating coaches, and I'm working through it, and I got the book, and I'm actually making a lot of progress with how I feel about food and diet and all of that. But at the end of the day, I'm still at a place where I'd like to lose weight, and I've been stuck in this place for a while, and it happens to kind of coincide with when I started the medication. And so I have this like need to want to explore it, but I'm also I know I'm not ready to come off because I'm terrified of it. Yeah. I'm terrified of what will happen. And so I'm like, nope, you just stay on and you keep trucking along. I don't know. This has now become a therapy session for me. So
No, I think you no, but I think you bring up a really good point because a lot of people have these doubts, especially people that have never been on medications before. They read the list of symptoms, and they say, "No way.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of that. I don't want to lose my libido. I don't want to, gain weight, or I don't want to, this and that." And listen, something that I want everybody here to know is if there is a trial on a specific drug and one person out of a gajillion people, I just made up I think a thing, has weight gain on the drug, that has to be listed.
Interesting.
It has to be listed. One person has a rash, it has to be listed.
Interesting.
So,
Okay.
sometimes we can get into our heads with these things.
Mhm.
That doesn't, I'm not saying that that's impossible. I'm also not a medical doctor, but
Right.
it sounds to me, if you're in a position where, which one of these are more important to me, it sounds to me like staying on this for the mental health.
100.
Right?
100 on that. Yeah. No, I know. I just am, just the thoughts that run through my mind.
These are hard thoughts. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of, especially women, have these thoughts.
Yeah. So, what are some of the biggest, because I think medication, I think there's a lot of stigma and a lot of misunderstanding about medication, what it's for, who it's for. What do you want to see different in media when it comes to mental health, therapy, medication? What are we getting wrong?
Yeah. We're getting wrong that we think that we have superpowers all the time to be able to just control everything. And that sometimes we just don't have any control on something, and that is not by choice. That is, again, the word control, that is not in our control.
Yeah.
And so the use of medication, it's not like, oh, I'm happy and I just want, it's something is going on. Something is making it really hard for you to get through just life. And if this is a tool, again, I said this before already, a tool in your toolbox, then using it is really, really important because, we can do talk therapy all day, every day, but there could be a lack of, I don't know, serotonin or, dopamine, like all these things that are really important for us to feel and to feel happiness and sadness and everything, but that we are just not producing.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like if you have diabetes, you're going to take insulin because you're not producing insulin. So why is that okay? But taking, Zoloft or citrulline is not.
Yeah. 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 And I like what you said there because, at least in my experience, it wasn't always pre-meds, oh, everything's dark and gloomy and sad. It was sometimes just nothing.
Yep.
So getting on medication is not a happy pill. It's just, for me, it's just, okay, now I can feel things and I don't get lost in them,
And I love that you just said that because it is not a happy pill. It is a baseline pill, right? So we want to stay at baseline. That is the best way because we can't possibly be happy all the time, and we cannot live a good life being sad all the time. Yeah. There has to be these ups and downs, but the baseline, we want to be consistent.
Yeah. It's like when I had friends or whoever asked me, it's like, the way I would describe it was one of my tells for myself of when I was getting either depressed or just out of it was that the laundry would just, I'd do it, but then it would sit in the dryer. And then 3 days later, I'd get it in the basket and it would sit there and I'd just stare at it. And it's like, the difference is that I still don't want to do the laundry, but I do it. I'm not happy about it, but I do it. Whereas before it was like, I cannot do that. So I won't. I will just sit here and stare at it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not by choice.
No. There was no choice in that, because I can tell you, just for myself, no one wants to feel like that. I'd rather be pissed off about laundry every day than feel like, why can't I just do the laundry?
Yep.
Because you don't understand it either. It's like, why can't I just fold that basket? It's been there for 5 days. Okay, I'm getting heated now. I'm going to stop. Anyway, I'm going to ask you to walk me through one more thing, kind of unrelated to what we've been talking about, but I really, really liked it, and I think it's worth sharing here. Your video about the miracle question. I think that's so spot on. If you would walk me through that a little bit here for everyone listening who maybe hasn't seen it yet. I love it, and I think it can be applied to so many things.
Yeah. So the miracle question comes from a solution-focused therapy model. And basically what a solution-focused therapy model is, very short-term, like, this is my goal, and these are the steps that I'm going to take in order to get to my goal. And so, I see the miracle question as finding a way to, take that small step into whatever it is that you want to change or you want to be different. So for me, for example, my miracle would be that I would wake up one morning and the thing that would happen that I know changed is my stomach wouldn't hurt. Right. So I think I talk about this in social media, but I have like the weakest stomach in the world. I have IBS, I have SIBO, I have all these allergies. And so something for me is I would wake up and my stomach didn't hurt, right? And then it's like, what will make that true, right? So what do I need to do in order to accomplish that? Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes we don't have an answer for that. And maybe it's just important to understand and realize where we're at in life. And sometimes we want to make a game plan. So, I'm going to go see a functional doctor because they have a different perspective at looking at the body. And so, it allows you to think, how do I want to really treat myself the best way that I can, and what are the steps?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what I really liked about it is, I think it really forces whoever is asking themselves this question to get focused on what is top priority for me right now.
Yeah.
I think that you heard me earlier. We have a lot on our plates, and we have a lot going on, and I talk to a lot of moms who feel like their life is not their own, and they just do everything for the kids and the house and the husband and all this, and maybe through COVID they've had to leave their job and they feel like no sense of self. And I think that's when I saw that, I thought of myself a year and a half ago, and I think that having that question as part of my toolbox would have really helped me get clear on what am I going to do? What do I want, and what am I going to do? Because that's really what it is, right? And it kind of gives you the ability to really fantasize and get out there. So, but then you bring it back to reality. Like you said, like where am I at in life, and what's possible and what's not. I really like that. So anyway, I encourage, everyone to go to your TikTok and just look at all the fabulous videos. And I think you have it pinned for now anyway. So, Leeor, is there anything that you would have asked yourself or would have wanted to make sure you got into this interview today that I didn't think to ask you?
I think that it's just be honest. Right? Be honest in therapy, be honest with yourself, and work on the shame surrounding that honesty. Because I think that a lot of people that go into therapy experience a lot of shame and a lot of guilt based off of the things that they share or the things that they keep to themselves, in fear of either being judged or bringing a thought that they've stuffed down so far come to life. Mm-hmm. And what would that say about them? And something that I'll say to anyone, and I say this to my clients, and the first session with every single client, I say, please tell me if I've ever hurt your feelings or made you feel uncomfortable, because that might happen and that is never my intention, but I want you to be honest with me because I never want you to feel uncomfortable. And when I say this to my clients, they're like, whoa, that is just like a weight off their shoulder, because she's preparing me, number one, that this might happen. It doesn't always happen. It might happen. And she's a human being. And I might say something that's going to come off weird, right? When we talk about the listening and hearing,
Right.
or speaking. And no matter what, it's important to be honest. And we as therapists appreciate vulnerability and honesty so much in the therapeutic room. You're paying a lot of money.
Right.
You might as well be real.
Right. Yeah. And as you're talking, I'm actually thinking about, like when you're getting ready to like give birth, and women are so petrified of going number 2 on the table, and the nurses and the doctors are like, this is nothing. Like, we don't care. We've seen it all. And I get that sort of feeling with therapists. It's like, A, you can't surprise me. Yep. B, I've heard it all. C, if you're not revealing or sharing your whole truth, you're not going to be able to really...
to grow.
Yeah, like you're not really doing the full work to really ultimately benefit you, the client. I mean, it's not... The therapist is there. That's their job, right? So, like you said, you're paying a lot of money. So...
might as well take advantage of it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Leeor, this was great. I love that I have another housewife fan in my circle now. Thank you very much. And I will link all of your social media handles and everything in the show notes for everyone to go check you out. But I appreciate your time, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was great meeting you.
So first of all, I just love the 3-sentence method that Leeor suggests for communicating during conflict. It makes so much sense. If I can sit here and put myself in a conflict situation, I realize how quickly my instinct is to form my counterpoints rather than listening. I also want to take a minute to clarify my words during that portion of the conversation. I appreciate Leeor for just kind of going with me during what I heard as a time of fumbling and searching for words. But in listening to it back, I really hear where I'm struggling to make the point, and I think I've figured out what I wanted to say. In the conversation, I said that I worry that it can come across as manipulative or cold to say that, now I know how to communicate better. And I say that sort of implying the end of that sentence could be to get what I want. Speaking about my experience in therapy and saying that now I know how to communicate better, ... to get what I want sounds cold and manipulative. But what I really think that I was feeling there was this sort of need to defend my husband. So what I'm saying is I think that the end of that sentence could also be, now I know how to communicate better, and so does he. What was coming up for me was feeling like I'm on a high horse, claiming that because I go to therapy, we argue better. Which is somewhat true. But we also argue better because he has grown and evolved too. I share my story and I share my perspective on this show. He's not given the opportunity to do that. So my point is that I don't want it to ever seem like because I'm talking about myself and I'm talking about my work and my progress and all of that, his is being left behind. This just isn't the platform to really do it. And this is probably all in my head, but I had to say it. So when I changed my communication style and share what works for me with him and what doesn't, he has the choice. He can adapt to what I'm saying, or he can ignore me. And then he can share what works for him and what doesn't. Or he can keep me in the dark and assume I'm a mind reader. And I'm thankful to say that he's adapted to what I've shared and that he's also been able to share back with me what works for him. So as a couple, our communication
is better. Did you get all that? So we fight, but as Leeor reminded us on the show, all couples fight, but it's how we resolve the arguments that matter most. So anyway, first of all, like, just thank you for listening to that. I just feel like I had to get that off my chest. But I had so much fun talking to Leeor. Please go check her out on TikTok and Instagram so you get that down-to-earth, modern millennial therapist vibe, Jack. Did I say that right? Okay, I have to be done with this now. Bye!
Thank you so much for tuning in today. Sass Says is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. This podcast is meant to be educational and not meant to replace professional therapy or professional medical attention. To learn more about today's show and what's new in my world, head over to sasssays.com. Thanks so much. Talk later.